Hi, welcome back. And as I promised, I'm doing a little bit of a tutorial on how to soak up wax when you are melting with a um, top lamp. If you'd like to see my review slash tutorial on bottom wax melters and why I don't use a bottom wax melter unless the candle is really low, you can watch the sweet iced tea candle video, a review video, because in there I did the review of the candle, but I also showed how with the bottom welter with a full candle that actually kind of makes it so it dissolves the glue, heats up the glue on the bottom of the wicks, and my wicks were floating, which I knew was going to happen because I've used a bottom melter before, not knowing how it does with a full candle. And you really have to like melt the whole candle to get the oils to evaporate out the top wax. Otherwise you just have cold wax on the top and you really can't get the oils going. So I don't personally recommend using a bottom melter with a full candle unless you plan on never ever burning that candle, because you will detach the wicks usually, and they're really hard to get back in place. I got mine back in place and it was tough. I had to use some different utensils to push the wicks back down. So I don't recommend that unless you have a candle that's lower, because like usually when I use the candles this size, like the 14.5 ounce, with the top lamp, I stack some lids underneath to get it closer to the heat so it can melt. But if you're using, but if your candle gets really low and you have a bottom melter, it's nice to use just so you can actually get that heat down to the wax better. But not everybody has a bottom melter, so you just kind of have to improvise and get your candle as close as you can. With these 24-ounce jars, you really can't get it any closer, really. But so if you want to be able to burn your candle once it gets lower and the heat from the lamp is not really getting to it, there's things you need to do to keep your candle able to do that later on. So let's begin. I'm going to take my candle off there, set it down here. And so I have a paper towel, a little napkin here that I'm going to use to put my my waxy cotton balls on. So I just have regular cotton balls here, and I'm just going to dip it in there, and I'm just going to soak up. Just going to let that sit for a second and soak up that top wax. Okay. Just really get that top layer that's already melted and get that good. I'm going to use another one. Just really let that top layer absorb into your cotton balls. And some people actually save these cotton balls and let them dry, and they turn them into fire starters, which I think is a really clever way of recycling these, because plus you never know, it might make your fire smell good. So I'm going to use 3 and see if that is enough absorbing, because you can see my wicks have kind of flopped over from the melting with the top lamp so many times. Maybe I use 4. I think I'll use 4, since I really melted this a lot. I really let it for like several days. I just melted it in the candle up. So I think I'm going to use 4, and I'm just going to kind of absorb it around. And doing it this way, it's easier to control how much you're actually removing versus, let that drip off, versus pouring it off. Pouring it off, you might end up doing too much, wasting some of the wax, but it's obviously better than just having a bunch of wax on top that you can't smell anymore. So I did 4 decent sized fluffy cotton balls. And now here's the trick with your wicks, okay? So you can see they fell over, and I'm just going to try to get a hold of them here. And I always, whenever I melt my candle and they start to fall over, you can see that I've gotten some of that wax out, and the wicks are quite tall. Sorry, it's got to focus. So the wicks are quite tall in that, now that I've absorbed some of the wax down. So what I would do is I will let this cool off with the wicks in place, because if you don't keep them in place, they might end up too close together. And then if you ever wanted to burn the candle, your wicks are just not in the proper place. They can migrate after a while. They can flop over if they get too long and move around in the jar, and then they get too close to the edge. You don't want flame close to the wax or the glass. So I always readjust my wicks when they start moving, and then let the candle cool. And then when the wicks are getting too long, and I might, now if you're not going to burn it ever, it might not matter too much, but still you get the wicks start to flop over as you're absorbing the wax. And if you're not trimming the wicks, they'll flop over into the wax and they'll get lost in the wax. So then you would definitely have a really hard time burning it. So just because aesthetically I don't like having messy wicks anyway, flopped over, I always wait for the candle to cool when they've gotten a little bit long and I've absorbed wax out, and then I will just trim them and keep them, decent length and normal length as it goes down. That way, when it gets to the bottom, as we were talking about earlier, if it's not really getting hot enough with the candle lamp anymore when it gets close to the bottom, I can just burn it the rest of the way. But I can't do that if I don't maintain the wicks and keep them trimmed as the wax goes down, and also keep them in the proper position. So that's my little tutorial. And a lot of people have different methods of doing things. This is just how I do it easiest and most effective for me to be able to keep the candle burnable if I ever want to burn it. And it just looks better. So you'll see there's a little bit of wax residue up on the glass here, like right here. But that's not a big deal to me because it doesn't have to be all pretty in there. But this really is a beautiful candle, and I really like it. So anyway, that is my 2 cents on how to use a candle lamp most effectively for me anyway, and taking out the wax, keeping the wicks straight and trimmed and nice in there as you use it up. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful to you guys. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.